my name's Natalie King and I'm from the Menzies Institute for Medical Research. So an interesting fact about me is that I like to sing while I'm working in the lab. I switch between what I'm feeling like listening to. I listen to a lot of Coldplay in the lab because I like to belt the ballads out. So I'm actually relatively new to MS research, and the way that I got involved in it is because one of my PhD supervisors, she is heavily involved in MS research. So I work with Kayleen Young, and she had a position available in her group, and she said that I should apply for it. And I'd heard a lot about MS from her, and also from a few people who are other PhD students who work with Kayleen. And so that's how I kind of got involved with MS. And as I've become more involved with the research, it's really inspiring, particularly at the University of Tasmania. We have a lot of collaboration between people who are living with MS and the researchers, and it's really interesting to hear everyone's perspectives. And it's something that kind of really inspires me to do MS research. So for me, I think at the moment, the thing that I find the most exciting is the genetic studies that are happening. So we actually have some genetic studies happening here at the University of Tasmania with the MS flagship. And something really interesting that has come out of that research is that it seems that there is more to MS than just the immune system. And this is really exciting because it means that there might be more targets that we might be able to use in the future to help treat MS. So our current project is looking at a process involved in something called myelination. So we know that in multiple sclerosis, people experience demyelination, which is the loss of the fatty coat that forms around the nerve cells, axons. And this is how the nerve cells are able to communicate between each other. So we're interested in what processes might affect how easily myelination can happen in someone who has MS. So we know that people who are living with MS, they experience demyelination, and this affects how their nerve cells communicate between each other. The cells that we're really interested in are immature cells that can come in and replace lost myelin. So these cells are called oligodendrocyte precursor cells. And unfortunately, we know that in MS, these cells are not very good at performing this function, but we don't know why. And there's been some really recent evidence that has shown that OPCs actually can have another function in the brain. And this is a function where they are involved in modeling the interactions between the nerve cells. And the way that they do this is they can eat the connections between the cells to kind of direct which cells are connecting with each other. And this is a normal process that's involved in brain cell connection. But we think that potentially that maybe the OPCs that have eaten something, they're not as able to come in and replace myelin. And this might be why we see that in multiple sclerosis, people are less able to have remyelination happening. So we're interested in understanding whether OPCs that have eaten something are able to also turn into myelinating cells. So that's our current research project. And the reason why this is important is because we might discover why myelination is not happening as well in MS, and this could give us new targets for treatments for people who are living with MS. So yes, I do work in the lab. The thing that I enjoy the most about working in the lab is when you are doing an experiment that you've worked up for a really, really long time. So as researchers, we spend a lot of time. Sometimes even just a small experiment can take a really, really long time to get it working. And when you finally get to the point where the experiment's working and you see the thing that you've been waiting to see, that's probably the most exciting thing. That's the thing that we kind of hold out for as researchers. And I suppose the converse of that, as a researcher, you do spend a lot of time working on things that can not work for a really long time, and it can be a struggle. You can spend years and years working on a project and not make much kind of headway, but then eventually, that feeling when something eventually works is amazing.